Creating community can be simple. We just need to get to know each other. We just need to connect as friends and neighbors. The 1941 film, Meet John Doe, is still relevant to creating community even today. Now, although it's just a movie, it illustrates what's possible when neighbors get to know each other. In this first clip, the main character, John Doe, played by Gary Cooper, gives a speech that inspires people to start coming together as neighbors.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am the man you all know as John Doe. I took that name because it seems to describe the average man. And that's me. And that's me. Well, it was me before I said I was going to jump off the city hall roof at midnight on Christmas Eve. Now I guess I'm not average anymore. Now I'm getting all sorts of attention. From big shots, too.
We've been double-crossed.
The mayor and the governor, for instance. They don't like those articles I've been writing.
You're an imposter, young fella. That's a pack of lies you're telling. Who wrote that speech for you? Benny, get the gun. Hey, kid.
Spencer. Ladies and gentlemen, the disturbance you just heard was caused by someone in the audience who tried to heckle Mr. Doe. The speech will continue.
Well, people like the governor and that fellow there can stop worrying. I'm not going to talk about them. I'm going to talk about us, the average guys, the John Does. If anybody should ask you what the average John Doe is like, you couldn't tell him because he's 1,000,001 things. He's Mr. Big and Mr. Small. He's simple and he's wise. He's inherently honest, but he's got a streak of larceny in his heart. He seldom walks up to a public telephone without shoving his finger into the slot to see if somebody left a nickel there. He's the man the ads are written for. He's a feller everybody sells things to. He's Joe Dokes, the world's greatest stooge and the world's greatest strength. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we're a great family, the John Does. We're the meek who are supposed to inherit the earth. You'll find us everywhere. We raise the crops, we dig the mines, work the factories, keep the books, fly the planes, and drive the buses. And when a cop yells, "Stand back there, you," he means us, the John Does.
What kind of a speech is that? Didn't you read it?
We've existed since time began. We built the pyramids. We saw Christ crucified, pulled the oars for Roman emperors, sailed the boats for Columbus, retreated from Moscow with Napoleon, and froze with Washington at Valley Forge. Yes, sir. We've been in there dodging left hooks since before history began to walk. In our struggle for freedom, we've hit the canvas many a time, but we always bounce back because we're the people, and we're tough. They've started a lot of talk about free people going soft, that we can't take it. That's a lot of hooey. A free people can beat the world at anything, from war to tiddlywinks, if we all pull in the same direction. I know a lot of you are saying, "What can I do? I'm just a little punk. I don't count." Well, you're dead wrong. The little punks have always counted, because in the long run, the character of a country is the sum total of the character of its little punks. But we've all got to get in there and pitch. We can't win the old ball game unless we have teamwork. And that's where every John Doe comes in. It's up to him to get together with his teammate. And your teammate, my friends, is the guy next door to you. Your neighbor. He's a terribly important guy, that guy next door. You're going to need him, and he's going to need you, so look him up. If he's sick, call on him. If he's hungry, feed him. If he's out of a job, find him one. To most of you, your neighbor is a stranger, a guy with a barking dog and a high fence around him. Now, you can't be a stranger to any guy that's on your own team. So tear down the fence that separates you. Tear down the fence, and you'll tear down a lot of hates and prejudices. Tear down all the fences in the country, and you'll really have teamwork. I know a lot of you are saying to yourselves, he's asking for a miracle to happen. He's expecting people to change all of a sudden. Well, you're wrong. It's no miracle. It's no miracle because I see it happen once every year. And so do you. At Christmas time. There's something swell about the spirit of Christmas, to see what it does to people, all kinds of people. Now, why can't that spirit, that same warm Christmas spirit, last the whole year round? Gosh, if it ever did, if each and every John Doe would make that spirit last 365 days out of the year, we'd develop such a strength, we'd create such a tidal wave of goodwill that no human force could stand against it. Yes, sir, my friends. The meek can only inherit the earth when the John Does start loving their neighbors. You better start right now. Don't wait till the game is called on account of darkness. Wake up, John Doe. You're the hope of the world.
John, you were wonderful.
In this next clip, soda jerker Bert Hansen addresses John Doe and tells him how his speech in the clip you've just seen has inspired them to meet their neighbors and start a John Doe club.
Come right in.
My name's Bert Hansen, Mr. Doe. I'm the head soda jerker at Schwabacker's drugstore. Well, sir, you see, me and my wife, we heard your broadcast, and we got quite a bang out of it, especially my wife. Kept me up half the night saying, that man's right, honey. The trouble with the world is nobody gives a hoot about his neighbor. That's why everybody in town's sore and cranky at each other. And I kept saying, well, that's fine, but how's a guy going to go around loving the kind of neighbors we got? Old Sourpuss, for instance. You see, Sourpuss Smithers is a guy lives all alone next door to us. He's a cranky old man and runs a second-hand furniture store. We haven't spoken to him for years. I always figured he was an ornery old gent that hated the world because he was always slamming his garage door and playing the radio so loud he kept half the neighbors up. Well, anyway, the next morning I'm out watering the lawn and I look over and there's Sourpuss on the other side of the hedge straightening out a dent in his fender. And my wife yells to me out the window. She says, go on, speak to him, Bert. And I figured, well, heck, I can't lose anything, so I yelled over to him, good morning, Mr. Smithers. He went right on pounding his fender. Was I burned? So I turned around to give my wife a dirty look, and she said, louder, louder, he didn't hear you. So in a voice you could have heard in the next county, I yelled, good morning, Mr. Smithers. Well, sir, you could have knocked me over with a feather. Old Sourpuss turned around, surprised-like, and he put on a big smile, came over and took my hand like an old lodge brother, and he said, good morning, Hanson. I've been wanting to talk to you for years, only I thought you didn't like me. And then he started chatting away like a happy little kid, and he got so excited his eyes out. Well, Mr. Doe, before we got through, I found out Smithers is a swell egg, only he's pretty deaf, and that accounts for all the noises. And he says it's a shame how little we know about our neighbors. And then he got an idea. And he said, how's about inviting everybody someplace where we can all get together and know each other a little better? Well, I'm feeling so good by this time, I'm ripe for anything. So Smithers goes around the neighborhood inviting everybody to a meeting at the schoolhouse. And I tell everybody that comes in the store, including Mr. Schwabacker, my boss. I'm talking too much. Well, I'll be doggone if over 40 people don't show up. Of course, none of us knew what to do, but we sure got a kick out of seeing how glad everybody was just to say hello to one another.
Tell him about making Sourpuss chairman.
Oh, yeah. We made Sourpuss chairman and decided to call ourselves the John Doe Club. And say, incidentally, this is my wife. Come here, honey. This is my wife, Mr. Doe.
How do you do, Mr. Doe? Sourpuss is here, too.
Oh, is he? This is Sourpuss, or excuse me, Mr. Smithers, Mr. Doe.
That's all right. If you didn't call me sourpuss, it wouldn't feel natural.
Well, anyway, I guess nearly everybody in the neighborhood came except the Delaney's. And the Delaney's live in a big house with an iron fence around it, and they always keep their blinds drawn. And we always figured that he was just an old miser that sat back counting his money, so why bother about inviting him? Until Grimes, the milkman, spoke up, and he said, say, you've got the Delaney's all wrong. And then he tells us about how they canceled their milk last week, and how when he found a note in the bottle, he got kind of curious-like, and he sort of peeked in under the blinds and found the house was empty. If you ask me, he says, they're starving.
Old man Delaney has been bringing his furniture over to my place at night, one piece at a time, and selling it.
Yeah. And, well, sir, a half dozen of us ran over there to fetch him, and we brought him to the meeting. And what a reception they got. Why, everybody shook hands with him and made a fuss over them, and, well, finally, Mr. and Mrs. Delaney just sat right down and cried.
And then we started to find out about a lot of other people.
Yeah, sure. Well, you know Grubel, for instance.
Grubel's here. See?
Yeah, that's a... Of course, you don't know Grubel, but he's the man that everybody figured was the worst no-account in the neighborhood because he was living like a hermit, and nobody would have anything to do with him. That isn't little Murphy. The postman told us the truth. Why, Grubel, he says, he lives out of garbage cans because he won't take charity, because it'd ruin his self-respect, he says.
Just like you said on the radio, Mr. Doe.
Well, sir, about a dozen families got together and gave Grubel a job watering their lawns. Isn't that wonderful? And then we found jobs for 6 other people, and they've all gone off for leave.
Yeah, and my boss, Mr. Schwabecker, made a job in his warehouse for old man Delaney.
And he gave you that $5 raise.
Yeah, wasn't that swell?
Why, Bert, I feel slighted. I'd like to join, but nobody asked me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor, but we voted that no politician could join.
Just the John Does of the neighborhood, because you know how politicians are.
Well, the reason we wanted to tell you this, Mr. Doe, was just to give you an idea of what you've started. And from where I'm sitting, I don't see any sense in you jumping off any building.
No.
Well, thank you for listening. Goodbye, Mr. Doe. You're a wonderful man, and it strikes me you can be mighty useful walking around for a while.
Bye.
Say goodbye, Mr. Doe.
Bye.